Sean, good to see you. Hope you're doing well, first of all.
Yeah, good, thank you.
Good stuff. Let's get the transfer speculation out of the way. These are names I know that have been run past you before, but first of all, Harry Wilson again has appeared on a number of publications this morning. Are we any further down the line with that? Where are we?
We're not further down the line of anything, of my knowledge.
Do you have an interest in him, or?
I've always had interest in lots of different players across the world of football.
Well, is there anybody else that you're looking at to bring in then that you could be?
Yeah, there's hundreds. Hundreds we're looking to bring in.
You're not going to give us anything, are you?
Yes.
So, what can you tell us then about what Burnley are trying to do between now and the deadline on Monday?
Nothing imminently.
That's not to say there won't be anything at all.
Well, let's wait and see.
In terms of your own players, it depends where you want to take the information from, but James Tarkowski refuses to go away in terms of possibly leaving the club. I know he's a player you value. What are your thoughts on him and his situation?
I've never changed my thoughts on him or the situation. The situation is outside of what we do here. He's an important player to us here. He's a very good player. He's a player who continues to develop. And you know, unless I'm told different by the powers that be at the club, he'll be here.
Is it fair to say that there has been interest in him and he's been subject to offers?
It's fair to say there's been interest in so many players down my years here that, you know, that's just become a common theme, really, of varying players, varying different links. Even myself, of course, you know, I had them links and some of us are still here. Some leave eventually, but certainly he's not part of that group that we're thinking is going to leave.
And as a final question before we move on to this weekend's game, you stated quite clearly at the end of last season you'd spoken to the chairman. He knew what your feelings and what you felt was needed to take this squad forward. With that in mind, is there still mileage in achieving those goals before Monday night? Are you hoping to bring in?
Not at the moment. There's nothing that I know of that will be coming into the building.
Let's look at Newcastle then this weekend. They've had a pretty strong start, despite some of the criticism that seems to come Steve Bruce's way. What do you make of the way they've opened the season?
Well, I think Steve's certainly rounded enough in the game to know that, you know, I always say it's hard enough to please some of the people some of the time. So to please them all the time is almost impossible in football. I'm a big fan of his as a fella, not just as a manager. Got a lot of time and respect for him. And his teams are always in good shape. They're always in good tactical understanding. So I expect it to be a tough game. You know, we're still stretched ourselves, but we're beginning to show signs of getting bodies back, which is good for us. I think they've had a couple of knocks as well. But no, it's never an easy place to go up to, regardless of fans or no fans. Obviously, when it's a full house there and if they're going well, that makes it slightly more difficult because the fans are very vocal there and get behind them when they are going well. So, you know, it's never an easy task playing against Bruce's teams, and I don't expect it to be. Like I say, from our point of view, I'm pleased that we are showing signs of getting players back, with Barnsley playing good minutes the other night and Tarky coming through unscathed. So, unfortunately, we lost Matt Lowton, so that's not ideal. Matt Lowton, I always get told off by him for calling him the wrong name, Matt Lowton. So, yeah, that's an unfortunate one. But there are signs of others getting back fit, so we'll hope that we can get that fitness improved over the international break and more bodies come back to us.
Yeah, how important is that? 'Cause I'm not here to make excuses for you, but it has been a start to the season like no other, with a very much truncated pre-season as well. It's easy to focus on 2 Premier League games and 2 defeats, but there's a bit more to it than that, isn't there?
No, there's no excuses for me. That, you know, we had a very similar situation after lockdown, including the complication of losing players that I didn't want to lose. So, but the mentality of the players was steadfast. So, I don't think we're far off. You know, I think the performances, we should have definitely got something against Southampton. I thought we were, particularly in the second half. And even at Leicester, we created a lot of chances. It's very rare we've been to Leicester and had 16 efforts at goal and so many really high-quality chances. So there's signs, even with the group that we've got. It just adds to the depth and the belief in the squad when they're looking over their shoulder and they're seeing these players, very good players, who, if they're not playing on the bench, and that's not disrespectful to the young lads, I think they're doing great. I just think that depth of experience that some of these players have got in the Premier League and their experience with us and what they've achieved, is bound to be important to the group. That being said, we take on the next challenge gladly. That's what we're in the business for, is to take on all these challenges that come our way.
You mentioned the Leicester game there and 16 chances. How much cause for optimism does that give you then when you see what they did when they went to Manchester City last weekend?
Well, don't get me wrong, they're a very good side. They were very close to achieving a big goal last year with Champions League and just didn't quite get it right after the lockdown, but they've certainly started well. I don't think it's that easy for us every game, not easy, but you know what I mean? They're on form, they've got no injury problems, they're a good outfit. I think once we get our players back fit, I just think we look more rounded. I think that competitive element in our group, let alone the opposition, I just think it adds fuel to what we do here. But like I say, they balanced that. We had the same sort of situation after lockdown. We delivered very well and got big points on the board. So it's not to say it's not achievable, because it is. But it is more tough when you have got the injuries we've got.
And that leads us on to this game against Newcastle, who got good points last time out at Spurs in the Premier League. I know you've already spoken about the controversial way they got the penalty in that game, but this week the powers that be have tried to tweak the rules just a little bit. There's been talk about safety of players if you restrict them raising their arms. You were a central defender yourself. What they're trying to do, is that helping the game or not?
I don't think it's ideal. I think some of the rules are best left alone. I think the handball one has been, well, it certainly needed tweaking as you described it. I hope that allows the referees a little bit more of their own refereeing ability, not necessarily by the absolute laws. Because the laws are always going to be slightly, you have to have rules and laws of the game, quite obviously. The interpretation of them still has to be a little bit for the referee, a little bit of understanding on and the belief in what they do and how many games they maybe have refereed and their understanding of how that works. And I think, although you want it black and white, we all know even with VAR, you're not going to get everything right, but I don't think they were a million miles off last season. So, the handball thing is always going to be contentious. Well, often it can be, and it can bring different opinions. I think it's a really tricky one, and I think the rule had to be tweaked, as you said. Hopefully that'll give them a little bit more licence to give their own feel of any incident, because a couple of the ones we've seen have just been ridiculous, and they end up ruining the game. Not the whole game, but the ruined moments, key moments in a game, they can ruin, and I don't think that's good for the game.
All right, Sean, thanks very much. Good luck this weekend.
Thank you.
Thanks, Richard. Andy Sixsmith at BLP.
Hey, Sean. Just a quick one on the Carabao Cup. How much have you, I suppose, learned from that defeat about the squad, about the players that perhaps you didn't already know?
Not a lot, really. I know we need the players back fit. It was good to get a couple through that. A couple of the young lads got a feel of it, playing against top-class opposition. Josh Benson got a little, cameo role and a few minutes on the pitch and that feel to take on the game. The biggest thing is remind ourselves of the details needed when you play any team, but particularly the top sides, and particularly on transition. They hurt you, which they did. They see the missed shape quickly, they see the gaps quickly, and that's why they're top outfits. So I think it's just a reminder of how we have to do everything right all of the time, no matter what the opposition. It's just compounded if you're playing the top guns, because they invariably, they're more clinical on their transition, they're more clinical in their offensive play, and they defend by almost attacking and pressing from a high position. And they do all the things that top players and top teams should do. And it's difficult to play against. But it is a reminder of the reality of what's in front of us. I think the players will get fitter, both mentally as in focused, as in kind of focus on fitness and leading to good focus in a game, good concentration. So I think that will come for a couple of the players who have been missing minutes. But yeah, so I wouldn't say I've learned anything new. It's just reminded me and reminded the players of the reality of playing in this division and the reality of playing the top end of this division. Although it was a cup game, obviously.
One of those players, obviously, that was missing minutes, the name you've already mentioned, Ashley Barnes, great to see him back. Obviously, what was it, New Year's Day? He's been out since effectively. It's been a long, long time. How important do you think is patience when it comes down to Ashley returning into action and picking up the goal trail again, or is he ready to go pretty much immediately in terms of scoring?
Well, to be fair, he's done well with it, because it's been really awkward for him, a really hard road back, the ups and downs of what can happen. He's listened to us. We gave him a plan of attack when he got right near the end and into true fitness. And at first he was a bit, he's chomping. He wants to be back quicker than anyone kind of thinking. We had to slow that down. We gave him a programme. We gave him a games programme. We said, look, you'll be ready for this game, which was the other night, to at least figure. We managed to get him started because he's looked fit and well, and I thought he did really well. And then we had to be a little bit cautious by getting him off the pitch. He's very hungry to get back playing, as in regularly. So we'll monitor that as we go. There's never, I don't think there's an exact moment when a player is truly ready. I think it comes with time. Some get effective very quickly and go straight back into business and look like they've not been away. Some it takes them a bit of time. So we'll have to be flexible with that thinking.
And obviously two huge players, Ashley and James Tarkowski as well, returned. What sort of impacts have you noticed that have on the team in the last couple of weeks, having these big players returning from injury and getting back into full training environment?
Well, things like any group of players, we were down to a training group of kind of 14 at times, and topping up with really young players, not only the ones you've seen on the bench, but even younger than that, trying to bring the numbers up to sort of at least 16s to 18s. So when these more mature players, more rounded players and more experienced players come back in the group, it just pushes the level in training. It just adds to the level in training, the quality level. And like I say, it's no disrespect to younger players. They're earning their spurs. They're learning how to be these players and learning the detail and the professionalism they put into it. And I think it just reminds the group that we have got a stronger group when they're all fit. We have got a good strength in what we do and experience in what we do. And that in turn just knocks onto the group and adds to that belief level that you have. So it's all them things. I always say it doesn't guarantee you get results, but what it does guarantee, you're more competitive. It guarantees that you're more ready if you've got a deeper squad and a more rounded squad and some of the experienced players we've got, and they're all fit and available. It just enhances your chances of getting good results. And
just on the squad out of the visit to Newcastle, I know you mentioned Matt. Is it likely that he's out? Are there any other problems with the squad? Or
yeah, Matt Lowen are almost definitely out from the tackle the other night, so that he won't figure. And I'll find out more news today. We're having an afternoon session today before we travel, so I'll find out more news. But hopefully there's some better news. Possibly touch and go with Robbie, touch and go with Johan. But the others should be okay. Barnsley, no reaction to what I know of. Tarky, no reaction to what I know of. So that's good news for them and for us. Oh, and J-Rod. Sorry, I missed J. Rodriguez out. He's making good progress. He's not there yet. And slightly longer term is Corky. He's making good progress. He'll be back on the grass over the coming days, but obviously not training with us, just with the sports science team.
Lovely. Just a couple of final ones from me on Newcastle. I know we've talked about Steve Bruce already. I think in Newcastle, the criticism has come in from local media, from fans, about the playing style, I suppose. How fair do you think that is, given how well Steve did in his first season as Newcastle boss?
I'm certainly not going to judge fan bases. They have their opinion. They make up their minds, sometimes quickly, sometimes a bit slower, and they give a bit of breathing space to a manager. They'll have their own opinion on the whys and wherefores. I think from the outside looking in with Steve, I know him well enough. I think he's pragmatic. I think he'll look at the group he's got, the best way of formulating that to win games. That's certainly what I think he'll do. It might not be the case. I certainly try and do that here. There's got to be a reality to your situation, I feel. And the reality is you want to be successful. You want to be in the Premier League. You want to build from a good base, which I think he'll be looking to do. And if you can play in a style that is effective and very good on the eye, then that's fantastic. Sometimes that takes the level of player and the level of technical play you have in your group. There's all different ways of winning. But at the end of the day, he'll be judged differently if they weren't winning, trust me. So therefore, the first thing in his mind, I believe, he'll be thinking, well, whatever we do, we've got to increase our chance of winning and then get wins. So I think most managers should be concentrating on that first. That's only my opinion. Others tell me they should be concentrating on the style instead of winning. Peculiar in my world, that, but that's what some people tell me.
You mentioned just very, very finally, the kind of Newcastle attempt to look good on the eye. They've made a pretty decent signs. Ryan Fraser, Callum Wilson have gone there. There's the likes of Alan Saint-Maximin already at Newcastle. Have you kind of seen a Newcastle team in recent years with these many attacking options? And how are you going to deal with that on Saturday?
Well, I don't think they've particularly lacked attacking options. I think, it's making the best of the group that you've got. Rafa had his style. Now, Bruce has got his style. And, they have spent a couple of quid. They have got some good players. But like I say, I think any side in the Premier League have an attacking way of working, and they'll have theirs. We've just got to make sure that we deal with that. So we don't know their team for sure. They can vary it. Obviously, with big Andy Carroll coming on the pitch, that varies their style. So we'll wait and see.
Thanks, Sean. Best of luck on Saturday.
Thank you. James at TalkSport.
Sean, the last time you met Newcastle, or the last 2 games you had against them last season, just the 1 goal from 180 minutes of football. Are you expecting a similarly close encounter tomorrow?
We'll see. I mean, I don't think they were scoring freely last year. We did okay with scoring in spells. There was other spells where we were a bit lean. And, what I said last week against Southampton, often we've had to get on the right side of the margins. We didn't that day, but we often do. We might have to find that way. That's the way it is. Sometimes they're close games. Sometimes they're games that you have to find them moments to take a win or to get something from the game. We'll look to do that. And if it's your day to be fluid and create really golden chances and take them, then that can happen. So I'm always open-minded about what can happen in a game of football. The main thing for me is, refocusing the group, getting ready for the next game. We've got a couple of bodies coming back fit, so that'll be a focus as well to make sure we can have the strongest group we can take there, and then delivering a performance. I speak to the players a lot about that. If we get the performance right, it increases your chances of winning.
We all welcome the fact that the handball rule is going to be interpreted slightly differently. However, it's still going to be a penalty if a player's arm is raised above the shoulder. So a situation like Eric Dyer last Sunday, that would still be a penalty. Are you having to teach your players to defend differently when they're inside the box to ensure you don't get penalised?
No, well, I think we saw it was a bizarre situation when you're now offering a defender, in theory, to go into the box and put his arms behind his back and somehow defend, which is completely unnatural position to find balance, to use proprioception. So I think we found, I can only imagine, I don't know, but I imagine the powers that be probably looked and thought, well, that can't be right, doesn't even look right, let alone act right. The idea of a hand above the head, excuse me, I understand in principle, but so to give you an example, if I got it for a header, natural leverage will be to put my arms up as I jump. Then if another player's shoulder hits my arm and puts it up in the air, the ball hits it, that's impossible for me. That can be handball, but I bet you they're going to get given. So yeah, again, that goes down to referees' understanding and interpretation, but I don't think they'll be allowed to do that, and that's where it will just get peculiar again. Hopefully that doesn't happen many times, but I can see that happening, because if you jump together, one of the arms can get pushed by another opponent, and the shoulder hits under the armpit, raises the arm, the ball hits it, and they give a penalty, and you think, well, that shouldn't be. But look, I can't control the rules. It's hard enough controlling a group of players to try and win a game. The rules keep changing. We've just got to work within them and hope that we get the rub of the green with them decisions.
Good news today with Dwight McNeil back in the England under-21s. I imagine you feel he shouldn't have been left out in the first place.
Yeah, well, I said afterwards, a player who's played virtually every minute of a Premier League season, and then the previous season, half the season, I just mentioned there must be some blooming good players who I haven't seen in the under-21 group if he doesn't make it. So it's only a bit of logic. It's not about choosing the squad for aid. It's not about telling him what to do. It's just a bit of logic, really. If you're playing every minute in the Premier League, I think you must be a good player, especially in a team that finished 10th in the Premier League. So it was more logic than anything. Certainly not a slight on the under-21 group or on the England setup. Absolutely not. I'm a big fan of it. It's just that it just seemed logical to me that he should be in the squad.
Just finally from me, Jeff Hendrick's first game against Burnley since he left in the summer. How do you reflect on the situation that saw him finish his career at Burnley prematurely, I guess?
Well, I said all along it was a situation I felt could have been avoided, but that's the way it goes. I'm used to things here. I'm used to how we have to manage the situation. He's a good player, fantastic lad, fantastic professional here, very well respected by our group. And of course, I don't wish him too well against us, but I certainly wish him well beyond us and our game, because he was a fantastic professional there, and I enjoyed his both on and off the pitch as a fella, a good fella to be around, and also his professionalism and how he delivered performance for us. And we asked a lot of him. We played him all over the place. He had his question marks here from fans, but sometimes it's unfair because we were playing him in all different positions. But he gets on with it without a shadow of a doubt. So, like I say, not so much against us, but certainly wish him well beyond us.
Cheers, Sean. Thanks for your time.
James, thanks. Dan, Jewel, who's ready, thanks.
Just touching on the Jeff Hendrick thing, when you're in the circumstances that you're in and you've got a relatively small squad, how much do you have to have players that can be versatile? I'm thinking even this season, Josh Brownhill playing in the central midfield or wide on the right, Eric Peters through necessity, I guess, playing in a midfield role. Do you get kind of extra value out of a player if he is versatile?
Well, it's always been at the background of our thinking. So when we try and recruit players, it's not at the foreground because you want players that fit slots, obviously. But, because we work with low numbers here, then you've had to have a little window. We've always had to have a little window. Could they operate in a different position? And, it's not always ideal, but players are asked a lot here sometimes to play in different positions. I take great value in the way they go about it, actually. I mean, Eric Peters is a shining example. He's played, 3 or 4 different positions for us, gives his everything no matter where he's playing. And we've asked that of other players. So it's like I say, not in the foreground of our thinking when we're recruiting, but it's certainly in the background. Can a player operate in a different role that can still be effective for us? Because, quite obviously we don't always spend the money that's needed to make sure every slot's filled and to make sure it's filled in a manner that them players only play in that position.
Is that one of those things that's dictated a lot by the player's character and their personality and their temperament, which I know is something that you look at before you sign someone, that they've got to be prepared to do that for you?
Well, I can't really judge on other teams and other footballers at other teams, but ours, I've always made it clear though, if we are asking them to play out of a position or play in a different role, then what's the word? The kind of thoughts on that are different. There's always a little bit more leeway with a player you're asking to play in an unfamiliar role. The same as there is a player getting back to full fitness. There's not always the same demand on them players from myself and the staff because we've got to be understanding. We're asking a lot of some of these players, whether they're coming back to full fitness as mentioned or whether they're playing in a different role. So I think, it's we try and be open-minded when they are moving positions and we try and give them the freedom to go and take that position on. So rather than give them too much information and question it, let's go and take the role on. Sometimes you get a breakthrough, you get a player who moves into a different role and actually does so well, you end up thinking that could be a new role for them.
And just in terms of what you touched upon there with players coming back from injury, does there have to be patience with people like Barnes and Tarkowski who've come back from injury and come back into the team that you might not get immediate hit the ground running what they're capable of from minute one?
Yeah, I think there does. I think there has to be a belief that they will get back to that full sharpness. Sometimes it happens very quickly. Sometimes it takes a little bit of time. Each player is different, the same as pre-season. That's why pre-season is needed, because some players just drop back in, no problem, and some players need a bit of time to get their eye in and get their focus back. So, you hope for it to happen very quickly, but you've got to be open-minded and realise that some players take a little bit longer. In our case, most players have done very well when they've come out of injury because they're fit to go to task rather than using the games to get them fit. I've always believed in that. I attempt, in fact, I don't think many times I've put a player in I didn't believe was right or proper or fit. I usually give them extra time, more time if you like, to be even fitter to then go into the team.
We've spoken lots of times about the value of every point in the Premier League and never taking any game for granted because they're always worth, that 3 points that are on the table there. How significant is it to pick up a first win of the season in the Premier League and kind of get off the mark and get those first points on the board?
Yeah, it's helpful, but we've been down a road where we haven't got that and we've still looked after ourselves. It's a story of a season. I've always said that. We are stretched. There are some things outside of getting results at the minute, but I still believe in the group that we're putting out there. They showed at the end of last year they're capable. And so, like I say, is it helpful? Yes, if you get a win early, get points on the board early. Does it guarantee your season? No, it doesn't.
That Europa League season that you're referring to, where the start in the Premier League was disappointing, does the value of experience help you there?
Was it disappointing, just out of interest? Was it disappointing or was it just reality?
Well, disappointing in terms of the points return in the first place, not necessarily the performances.
Okay, I'd ask your opinion on that.
Okay, well, You're here to give your opinion. No one cares.
Well, no, I just asked you. You didn't have to answer. You could have said, I'm not interested in my opinion because I'm Beardy and you're the manager. So you could have just said that and I would have answered.
We're leaving that in, definitely. Sorry, value of experience. Does that help you not worry too much about it or not let external factors kind of hone in and focus on it too much or take too much notice of people saying Burnley have had a poor start or whatever?
Well, I don't know. What do you think? I had to. It was too easy to do that. No, look, people hone in on good starts, bad starts, and different starts. The facts are the facts. It's, the Premier League's a very, very difficult league. You can't, well, if you're us, you don't walk into it guaranteeing that you're going to get this many points after this many games. It just doesn't work like that. In my experience, it just doesn't work like that. You've got to take on every game, which we've attempted to do. I've had no problem with that. We had a couple of nice cup rounds and won through. We got beat by a better side against Man City. No problem with that. The margins are tight. We just got to get on the right side of them. That's how close it can be. And I haven't been overly disappointed with the two performances in the league, but we've got to make sure that we're adding in the detail. The detail for me is massively important. There's been no lack of effort, no lack of shape, tactical understanding, some good play actually. Like I say, we went to Leicester, created a number of very good chances. The detail, the finer detail, the soft moments where you conceded, the big moments when you haven't scored, they're the bits that really make sure you get what you want.
And just lastly, I know you are a student of performance. If you keep those performance levels where you want them or above that, will you win more games than you lose? Will you get the result more often than not?
Well, in theory, barring you can't always legislate for a referee's decision and a bit of bad luck and all things like that. But in theory, if you perform better more often and more consistently, then you increase your chances to win.
I'm off to formulate some stronger opinions and get some better lighting. Thank you.
Good man.
Thanks, Dan. Alex James, just to finish this section, please. Thanks, Al.
Sean,
Just on Lax, what injury is it? What's he done? You're able to share with us?
Yeah, he got a slight twist on his knee, but also his ankle. So we're waiting on news, but it's certainly not great at the moment. We're not sure about the timescales, but he definitely won't be right for the weekend.
and just a couple quick ones on recruitment. If you aren't able to bring anyone in between now and Monday, or indeed later in the month on the second deadline, do you think that sort of, I don't know if asking for trouble is the right phrase, but will leave you short and in a position where you might be depleted in numbers again, given the likelihood of injuries and suspensions?
No, it'd just be the reality of working here. I've been down this road before, so it's the reality. We take the challenge on with whatever numbers we've got. I manage every situation the best of my ability. So I'll just manage this situation just the same as I always have done.
Because it would leave you with fewer sort of senior professionals, I guess, than perhaps you might have ever had at Burnley over your time here.
Possibly. You probably know better than me.
Unlikely. But and do you feel like this sort of off-the-field takeover talk and all that sort of stuff about things at board level and higher than that has had any impact on sort of the money you might have to spend or the way the club is approaching a window? I
don't know. You'll have to ask the chairman and the board. That's their department. It's not mine. That's for them to make them decisions, if there are decisions to be made, by the way. I'm not in the loop with that. So at the minute, it's conjecture and outside noise.
And just lastly, quickly on Dwight, obviously back in the England under-21 squad, and we've spoken about that already. You mentioned after the game on Wednesday night about playing him in a 10 and having a little look at him in that position. Is that something you've sort of given serious consideration to, given the lack of options out wide and perhaps using a central midfield three and him in behind the front players or anything like that?
Yeah, we've done that many times. In the season we finished 7th, we played Jeff Hendrick in the 10 on many occasions. So despite everyone thinking we never change anything. But, the thing is with Dwight, we did actually put him in the 10 at Palace away last year, and I thought he did really well. He's a talented player, and I think he'll do varying shifts for us, and I think he'll be open-minded to do that. So if we need that, it is something that we think's available. But equally then, we need the wide slots filled in. At the minute, we haven't got the bodies to do that. So it's something that we would consider when everyone's fit. But at the minute, we are stretched, so we're trying to stick to a format that suits the players without tweaking too much. And of course, we've had very, very minimal amounts of pitch time on the grass out here because of the cup games. So, this early spell, it's just been game after game.